Hello, hello, Talal. How are you doing today and where are you dialing from?
Hey Kate, yeah, good to be here today. I'm in Dubai right now. Yeah,
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for dialing in today to join my hot seat session. The purpose of this session is to help companies or entrepreneurs to address their blind spots and gain competitive edge with the help of our wonderful mentors, which is you. But before diving into this interesting topic that we will cover today, I'd like to learn more about you and your expertise.
yeah. So I'm Talal Ratrout, currently based out of Dubai. I'm Jordanian. I manage the sustainability and smart water accounts at Rockwell Automation.
Great. Well, that is really short. Thank you so much. So, yeah, we're going to talk about circular economy, and this topic has been, it's a lot of interest to me personally because I know a lot of companies are struggling to go from linear to circular economy. So I'm really happy to cover that topic. So before we proceed, I know you wanted to share a presentation with us, which you prepared for us. So let me start it for everyone. And I'm going to ask the first question for you, which is, of course, the basic. What's the difference between circular economy and linear production model?
Okay, so if we go to the next slide, please. Not to oversimplify things, but it's quite simple in concept. So where we are right now, how we do businesses every day, how we manufacture, it's quite very linear. We're extracting materials out of earth. We're making products out of them, and then at the end of their lifetime, dispose of them. So it's basically a take, a make, and waste or dispose, which is a very linear. You have inputs, you process it somehow, and then you have your outputs. The circular economy as a concept is actually something that we've been doing our whole lives, not as it is supposed to be, and it's not as for its full potential, but it's something that we have experienced our whole lives. Where when your mother had to give you your hand-me-downs from your brothers and sisters, where we share certain products with our neighbors. We all share power drills with our neighbors and so on. So as a community, and especially like in extended families, circular economy somehow as a concept is we're quite used to it. But where we can go with it is actually, as I mentioned, we're quite very unfortunately, we're very extractive at the moment, where we have a finite number of resources on this earth that's going to end somehow, someday. And unless we bend this linear, very linear model that we have of take, make, and waste, and somehow close the loop and create circularity within our system, we're gonna basically have a very unfortunate future, and that's a fact. And we see the changes, the climate change and its effects around us every day. So when it comes to a circular economy, where you have the inputs, processes, let's say, that I'll oversimplify it again, and then you have certain outputs that are becoming also inputs for a second cycle, a third cycle, and a fourth cycle, which allows us to really brainstorm and think about many things and how we can use it to our benefit, how businesses can really adapt and adopt this in this, especially with the changing consumer behaviors around the world. I'll mention a few trends that have been going on right now that actually will accelerate circular economy. We have seen the effect of globalization on our Earth. Most manufacturers have gone for huge manufacturing facilities that they require economies of scale to become profitable. Circular economy allows us to rethink how we do things, how we manufacture, opt for more intelligent, decentralized networks. I'll simplify that. The circular economy allows us to become more local, where your suppliers actually much closer to you, eliminating the need for logistics, but also closer to you in relationship. And maybe
That's a
later on during the
great.
presentation we can talk about that. Yeah, hopefully I answered your question, but you need to stop me somewhere, otherwise I'll talk about this for hours.
No, it's perfect. Thank you so much. But let's, before proceeding to the next question, let's just summarize. So, from what I understand, the main threats of the linear economy that a lot of companies are sticking to right now is, first of all, the planet has infinite resources, which is really bad for us. And whatever is the product of what we are doing is going to waste and polluting the planet, right? And
Yeah,
circular economy, the aim of this is to eliminate it, to recycle resources we have, and whatever we created can be taken again, and it's like a never ending circle, correct?
more or less,
Just
that's a perfect
oversimplified
summary
it.
of what I wanted to say. But thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So then I can ask you the question that, of course, a lot of companies are beginning to understand it right now, but I'm sure they face a lot of challenges when it comes to switching from linear to circular economy. So can you tell us what are the key challenges that they're facing? And I also know that it probably maybe it's really hard to measure the success of, of the circular economy initiatives in terms of, both being environmentally friendly but also driving, business performance.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely, if circular economy was so easy to do, everyone would be doing it. It's just like common sense. But no, it requires a significant amount of change and changing consumer behavior, changing our mindsets and culture. So more people need to have awareness about it. So there's so much.
Mm-hmm.
The lack of awareness is quite a challenge of itself. More people need to understand. Let me oversimplify things. I like
Mm-hmm.
oversimplification when it helps deliver a point. So we're living on an earth that actually very cyclic in its nature. You see plants and animals become food to each other and go around the circle. And us as humans somehow opted out of the system, went for a linear model, and are just over consuming and killing our earth. But um as I mentioned, it's a very old concept and we see it everywhere. But there's so much also lack of awareness, and when you have lack of awareness, it means lack of regulations as well. When it how it does affect businesses when there is a lack of regulations. The let's say also our products are not designed and opted not designed to allow and enable the circular economy. It creates a lot of issues for businesses as well to become profitable. So again, to simplify, so the lack of regulations, which puts a lot of pressure on businesses. So if you want to go as a business, you want to go for a circular model with your customers, you're actually going to be a bit more expensive. So it requires also substantial capital at the start, which can be quite challenging. Maybe if we rethink regulations as governments and policymakers, and we want to push and enable the circular economy, we need to know how to incentivize business owners and businesses to actually opt for the circular economy. Maybe we can introduce some sort of tax leniency, some tax incentives, because again, a circular economy and so much research have been done, like by the likes of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, where actually opting for circular economy can be much cheaper for the consumer. But yes, it requires a substantial amount of capex, lack of regulations, and one really important point actually is the lack of data. So businesses currently are not measuring their emissions, are not measuring. They're not connected with their suppliers, where they can identify what are the outputs of my suppliers that I can use as inputs into my system. There's no data. There's no communication between us as manufacturers and our suppliers. And there's also, when it comes to, for example, lack of data on reporting on emissions. When it comes to scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, unless I have some sort of a baseline and an understanding of where I am today, it would be very hard for me to measure where I can go. And that's to the second part of your question. Again, to connect it to the lack of data, it's not only on the inputs of your system, it's also about the outputs. Where your products are going, how people are using them, how are we designing our products to live a long lifetime. Maybe it also gives us a bit of an idea, and I'm going to talk about it later, is how we redesign our products, where we make sure that certain part of it, or hopefully all of it, comes back and enter a new cycle. And with that, we need a substantial amount of data and measurements along the way.
Thank you.
So yeah,
And before we, yeah,
yes, please, Kate.
before we proceed to the next question, we actually have the question from the audience. Could we tell again what is circular economy compared to linear economy? But because some people joined later.
Yeah, sure.
Just to tell it again to proceed the next question.
Sure. As a summary, currently what we're doing in our businesses is very linear. We're taking products, processing them. We're taking materials, processing them and creating products. These products at the end of their lifetime, we're disposing of them. We're not using the output as an input to our system. We're not using the end products. Basically, you buy right now a phone, it dies 4 or 5 years, and you're not utilizing any sort of material back into your new production of new phones. So that's where we are. We're very extractive. We have a finite number of resources on this earth, and at one day we're gonna finish it all up. That's in summary. So the goal of circular economy, and circular economy as a concept, is how we can use the outputs as new inputs and creating that loop. So the output, the end product, can become a new product for you. And along the way, you're minimizing waste, reusing waste, and designing it out, and keeping the value of your items along, creating multiple values at every part of it, and making sure that the item at the end of its lifetime is valuable enough for you to reuse it somehow. So that's the circular economy. We're taking our outputs as new inputs for multiple cycles.
Perfect. So now that we summed it up and discussed, challenges of implementing it, let's turn to the positive side and mention to our audience what are some key strategies or methodologies that that businesses can at least try to adopt to redesign their products for circularity.
Sure. If you can go to the next slide, I would like to introduce
Sure.
Also a bit. It would give me no. Can you go to the one before that?
Oh.
The butterfly.
Skip to
Yeah,
forward.
perfect. So this is called the butterfly graph, done by Ellen MacArthur Foundation. On the right side of it, you see the blue part. It talks about the technical products, and on the left side, it's about biodegradable products. Why am I mentioning this when I'm talking about strategies? Because all of these loops are actually different aspects that we can think of as businesses where we can create value for our customers. So when you think of circular economy, there are two important things to think about: design and your business model as a business. Both of these things have to go hand in hand and actually change for you to achieve circularity. So when we talk about technical products, it's everything: trains, building materials, phones, washing machines, headphones, whatever, laptops. And if we go to the utmost right, the bigger circle, you see recycling. So recycling is very important to us. We should keep doing it, but it's actually it takes away most of the value of the products. It isn't the smartest way to be circular. So when we think about high volume, low value products, it's actually perfect. When we talk about packaging, we should always ultimately design our packaging to be recyclable and can be used somehow. And when we go nearer to the middle and we start talking about refurbishing and remanufacturing, for example, remanufacturing motors, remanufacturing engines for cars. Currently, most of those remanufactured machines, when they go back to the manufacturer, they're actually broken. So the manufacturer takes clean it up, takes it apart, and mainly uses 80% of the materials into creating a new engine that we can use. 20% goes into spare parts sometimes when we can use it in different ways. But imagine if we can actually monitor and predict when our products will die, because we're designing it this way. So if imagine if I know that this motor or this engine is gonna it's about to die at this point, then I can take it back, still fully functioning as a company, and remanufacture and eliminate, make it not only I'm using 80%, maybe even use more, and create new products for my customers. It also allows you to change your business model as companies as well, because and it creates different relationships. For example, instead of buying cars, in the future, maybe car manufacturers will start leasing cars, and you start paying per mile, paying per trip, or something like that. And when you have such business models and how you're capturing revenues, you start redesigning your products in a different way. I don't want to sell more cars. I want to make my cars actually last for a very long time. And I need to make sure that at the end of its lifetime, I'm going to use it for another cycle. And when I have newer technology, I'm going to make it better the next time. And then for a third cycle and a fourth cycle, because I don't want to make the most out of it. Of course, just let me summarize. I don't want to take too much of your time as well. So then we go to reusing certain products, redistributing them, and ultimately share it as well within our small communities. There's a very good example of industrial symbiosis in a city in Denmark, Kalundong, if I pronounce it properly, where the public and the private are actually very connected, and they are the surplus of supplies and materials, for example, surplus of water, surplus of energy, and surplus of material is actually moved around multiple interconnected parties to make the most out of it. And this is where it comes to be, where we create multiple loops of sharing within a very small system, where we create what I mentioned of intelligent, decentralized networks. And that's for the technical part. When it comes to biodegradable products, I'm not talking about a sandwich here, but I'm talking, for example, about wood, how we use wood, for example. You take wood, you could potentially burn it and feel warm that night, but you can also create out of wood a table. And then at the end of its lifetime, it's designed to create, for example, chipboards. And at the end of its lifetime, also you can use it as compost. And if we make sure that to design it with no non-toxic biodegradable material, and we make sure like not to paint it with the toxic paint, we can actually enter it back into the soil and make use of it and make it. And this is what we call about cascading. So I just wanted to use this butterfly diagram to show how businesses can actually rethink and redesign their products to last for a very long time and create new channels of revenue and create a more intimate relationship with your suppliers and your customers, actually.
Great point. Mm-hmm.
If you maybe if we go to the next slide,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to highlight like some of the methodology that can actually accelerate circular economy. It's something that we're all talking about now. It's been there for a very long time, artificial intelligence, but it's basically with what we have all been talking about, and it's a good opportunity for us to utilize it to accelerate circular economy. So I talked about the challenge when it comes to data, but across the circular economy, there are multiple stages where we can utilize artificial intelligence to help us accelerate. One very important part, I'm skipping number one to going directly to number two, is product design. Right now, maybe your designers could be working on 10 designs a year, where you have to design products, test them out, put them under certain conditions, and simulate certain parameters for you to test out your products. With artificial intelligence, what we can do is basically upscale this in a huge manner. It gives you scalability when it comes to design, where you can like design maybe thousands and thousands of products and simulate them in a year, where you could actually reach your end goal of having long lifetime, better products, better relationship with your customers because of having the surplus of designs that you can use. There are also multi other factors. I talked about condition monitoring, predictive analysis, where we can know when our machines and our products are going to die. But think of it this way. There are multiple methodologies that we as suppliers or as manufacturers can use to bring more customers and lock them in for a very long time. It's quite an intimate relationship. Hopefully, I've answered
Thank you.
your question, but
Oh, so that was you mentioned the second step, but the step 3, 4, 5,
sure. Let me.
you've already mentioned
Yeah, no.
them?
Let me
Because I
go
didn't
through
quite
them
understand.
quickly.
Yes. Maybe we can
Yes,
elaborate
yes,
because we
yes,
still
yes.
have time.
So, for example, we talked about closing the loop. This is basically a diagram of the promises of AI and how can AI can actually accelerate the circular economy. We talked about recycling a lot, product design. We can use, for example, blockchain technology into sourcing and manufacturing, making sure that we know exactly where our material are coming from, what type of materials. Because when it comes to the circular economy, it's very important to know what type of materials, where they're coming from, and where they're going as well. So this is part of it. There are a lot of enablers as well from other technologies under the umbrella of artificial intelligence. When we talked about the Internet of Things, we talk about smart manufacturing, we talk a lot about that, but we are still thinking of economies of scale, mass production. But we can actually implement this much easier on a smaller scale when we have a smaller, decentralized, intelligent network. And that's part of number 3, efficient product reuse. And this is what like I sell on a daily basis. Like I talk about energy efficiency, I talk about using regenerative energy, and this is quite important. We need this. The circular economy does not mean that we're going to focus less on making our products more efficient or making our processes more efficient. It goes hand in hand with this. So it's quite beautiful as a concept, and it actually makes me really excited. Of course,
That's wonderful.
yeah, when we go to logistics, as I mentioned, instead of opting for huge manufacturing somewhere across the world, I would be closer to my supplier, and we lower emissions when it comes to logistics as well. Some of the technology that we are currently using is labeling of products, labeling of material. When it comes to machine learning, we can use robotics there as well. When it comes to collection, moving certain products, and also we can use it in sorting and processing as well. So more or less, that's a very
Mhm.
oversimplified explanation of this diagram. I can
No,
talk
no.
about it for hours.
That's great. But as a wrap up, I actually have a question for you, maybe, on the side of maybe a business owner and a consumer, because, for example, me, I've noticed recently, even compared to maybe 10 or 20 years ago, I see whenever I buy products, there are companies who are really concerned about environment, and, I stand for this. But I feel like bigger companies, whenever I buy, any tech products or something, I see that they're lasting less than they did before. For example, you buy a phone, you buy a laptop, and before people could use them for 10 years. Now, people use phones for just 2 or 3 years because they just stopped working. And I see that some companies, maybe long term established companies, they think that doing more products and making people buy more consumerism is a way to get more revenue. But do you have any words for such companies on why it's important to switch from this kind of thinking, consumer linear thinking, to circular economy? Why it's time to actually make products that last longer than the ones who last less, but bring more revenue, as some
Yeah,
companies think.
you mentioned quite very good points actually. Companies are designing their products to last a shorter period because that's how they can make profit.
Mhm.
They earlier when we were like 30, 40 years ago, products used to be designed for a very long time because people as a sales mechanism or their value proposition to their customers was quality, right? I can give you a product that lasts a very long time, But right now, it's all about producing more and making your customer go for that next thing. Every new year, we have new phones that we don't mind just throwing away your phone and getting a new one. And you don't actually need a new phone for every year. But that's how we are also designed to purchase and consume. So companies are making use of that. This is how they can be profitable. You can't blame companies for wanting to make more money. But what we can do is also have an open conversation with such companies where we find new business models where it actually makes sense economically for them to design their products for a very long lifetime. This is what we talked about when it comes to, instead of selling things, we're leasing it to people, for example. So, for example, imagine if you don't buy your washing machine, you lease it from the manufacturer. You have it at home, and you pay by wash to them. And because they're the manufacturer, at the end of its lifetime, they know they own it, they still own it. They know exactly how to make the most out of it and use that value and put it back into a new product and a new washing machine that they can lease to someone else. And it's actually been done. The economies have been worked out. It's actually 12 cents per wash. For you, it's cheaper as a consumer in comparison to 27 cents USD to actually own your own washing machine and use it. So you have more money to consume somewhere else. So you actually, as a consumer, you can consume more now because you have an excess amount of money. Yes, so it's better for other businesses maybe to diversify to multiple products and create different relationship across different verticals to your consumers and your customers. So yeah, you will not be losing money. You'll be locking in very loyal customers for a very long time while making the world a better place and still be profitable, which is why businesses exist.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Thank you. And I see it also inspired a great comment in our audience. So before we wrap up, I'd like to read it out loud. AI is revolutionizing waste management by recycling processes. By leveraging predictive analytics, it enables businesses to anticipate resource needs, optimize usage, and significantly reduce waste. This is not just good for the planet, it's also a smart business. So I feel like that's exactly what you also wanted to mention.
Exactly. I think my audience might be a bit more articulate and eloquent, better than me. But I love it. I love that I was able to bring out that point.
Thank you. Thank you, Talal, so much for this wonderful conversation. And I really appreciated the visual aid that you gave to us because I was able to comprehend the information better because of this. So I highly appreciate it. And I hope our audience also enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. So if you did, I highly encourage you to check the caption and see how you can work with Talal to help you and your company implement circular economy models. Again, thank you, Talal, and have a
Thank you
great
so much.
rest of the
Thank you
day.
so much.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.